Hello everyone! I hope you're ready for another adventure, because today, Wayne reads Curious George. Always remember that as we go through these amazing stories and read these outstanding adventures, all you have to do if you want to follow along is like and subscribe. Now, I think that North Star will be perfect to join us for today's adventure. Now the North Star is here. Let's jump in, because today we get to read Curious George Goes to a Costume Party. This is George. He is a good little monkey and always very curious. One day, George and his friend, the man with the yellow hat, were on their way to a party at Mrs. Gray's house. George could not wait. He liked parties, and he was looking forward to seeing Miss Gray. But when the door opened, George did not see Mrs. Gray at all. He saw a witch. "Don't be afraid, George," said the man with the yellow hat. "This witch is our friend." The witch took off her mask. It was Mrs. Gray after all. "Oh dear," she said. "Did I forget to tell you this was a costume party?" George had never been to a costume party before. Inside, he saw more people than he knew. They were all wearing costumes. There was his friend Betsy, dressed like an astronaut. And was that Bill? Why, he looked just like a mummy. George wanted to wear a costume too. "I have some dress-up clothes upstairs," said Mrs. Gray. "Would you like to use them to make a costume, George?" Mrs. Gray took George to a room up with a big trunk filled with clothes. "Borrow anything you like, George," she said. "I have just the thing for your friend downstairs." George tried out a lot of costumes. The first one was too big. The next one was too small. Another was too silly. And this one was just too scary. At last, George found a costume that was just right. George was a rodeo cowboy. He wore a vest and pants with a fringe, and he even had a lasso and a hat. If only he could see himself in the mirror. George was curious. Could he see himself if he stood on the bed? No, he needed to jump higher. George bounced on the bed, just a little, but he still couldn't see. He bounced a little more and a little more. Soon, George was having so much fun, he forgot he was looking in a mirror. He bounced as high as he could until crash! George bounced off the bed. He smashed right into the night table and got tangled in the tablecloth. Suddenly, everything went dark. George heard people downstairs gasp. What was that? Was that a ghost? A ghost? George did not want to meet up with a ghost alone. He dashed out of the room and down the hall. He wanted to get back to his friend in a hurry, and he knew the fastest way. He hopped onto the rail and sailed down whoosh down the stairs. "It is a ghost!" someone screamed. Everyone turned. They looked scared. They were looking at George. The ghost must be right behind him. George flew off the rails and landed plop right into the arms of a farmer. But it wasn't really a farmer. It was his friend, the man with a yellow hat. Everyone stopped looking scared and started to laugh. "That's not a ghost. That's a cowboy," laughed a policeman. "That's not a cowboy. That's a monkey," giggled a princess. "That's not just any monkey," said Betsy. "It's Curious George." Everyone clapped and cheered. They liked George's Halloween trick. "You gave us a good scare, George," said Mrs. Gray. "I'm glad to see you found some interesting costumes. Now, why don't I take your ghost outfit so you can join the party?" After the guests bobbed for apples, lit jack-o'-lanterns, and played some party games, prizes for the best costume were handed out. There was one prize for Betsy, and one for Bill, and two for Curious George. "You were the best ghost and the best cowboy, George," said Mrs. Gray. Soon, everyone had a good time at the party, especially George. Too soon, it was time to say goodbye. "Good night, George. Happy Halloween." Oh wow, that was a lot of fun with Curious George at his first costume party. What did you think, North Star? I like that part too. We'll see you in the next adventure, okay? And we'll see you on the next adventure, here with Wayne Reads. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you again. Bye-bye.